my good friend Bienfait and Becky, Blalock, two of the most high-powered women you'll ever come across. Talk to us about why women in leadership roles in particular should embrace their feminine qualities and thrive. Hey, welcome to the Leadership Show. Welcome to the Happiness Platform. I'm Rose Singh. I've got two of some of the world's most powerful women here with me today, and I'm highly excited. They're very good looking too, so it'll make my job a lot easier. We've got Bienfait and Becky Blalock. Becky, can we start off with just an introduction to yourself, please? I've seen a lot about you since Robin has, introduced you to us. I know you've been a CIO, you're the author of Dare, and you talk a lot about what it takes to come from, a background such as yours, where you moved around a lot as a kid, I understand, through high school, etc., to establish, a career that could be admired by anyone and everyone. A good example for not only rising women, but also, boys and men all around the world.
Well, just to tell you a little bit about me, I spent 33 years in the electric utility industry. I was recruited right out of college to go work for one of the largest generators of electricity in the U.S., and I started on the ground floor. I didn't know anything. I didn't have a lot of history with business, but during that 33-year career, I had a lot of mentoring and coaching and support, went into a lot of jobs and got developed, and spent the last 9 years of my career as the Chief Information Officer. Many of the jobs I held in the company, I was the first woman to hold those companies because Robin and I came along at a time where women didn't do these kinds of things.
Exactly.
In fact, in 1978, when I came out of college, only 15% of business majors were women. Today, that number is more like 50%. And Robin, who's an engineer, the numbers were even lower
and
for
still,
women engineering.
Exactly, it's still pretty low. And you get more women in technology and science, more in the health vertical, but not in infrastructure, and mainly even into the utility space, like Becky's been.
And actually, that's how Robin and I met when I was the CIO and she was head of world engineering at AT&T. And some of the bright women at AT&T said, "We got to get you and Robin together. You need to talk."
Correct.
And of course, we've been kindred spirits ever since. I retired from Southern Company 4 years ago. And I knew that when I retired, I was going to write a book, mostly for women, because when you reach these senior levels, you get asked a lot to go out and speak. And initially, when I was asked to go out and speak, I think, what in the world am I going to share with these people? And I found that just talking about my journey really excited people, and that there were lessons that I had learned that I was anxious to leave behind. So I interviewed 28 other very successful women, Robin being one of those women, and I asked them a number of questions. One of those questions was, if you had a single piece of advice you could give to a young person who was entering the workforce today, what would it be? And over again, I heard the same thing. And that is, be willing to put yourself out there and take risk. Be willing to do whatever it takes to grow yourself. Get outside your comfort zone and don't be afraid to fail. And I think so many of those same lessons are the same ones that are applicable for innovation. With my book, I've been all over the country and mostly speaking to women. And I asked them, I said, ladies, I know you've been in a room where you're sitting around the table, you're the only woman, you try to say something 2 or 3 times, and nobody's listening to you, or they're shutting you down or discounting you. And a few minutes later, somebody else says what you said. And all of a sudden, everybody goes, gosh, what a great idea.
Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, wow, I just said that a couple minutes ago, and now I've said it 3 times, or I've said it several times in a meeting. But I think, Becky, your example of your team coming together, you guys had the opportunity to sit with each other for a period of time and get to know each other.
Right.
So it was okay for you guys then to speak out of what you could do in each one. So not only did they create a safe environment, they actually built a relationship amongst them of different facets within the business that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do unless somebody had put them in the room together.
Yes. So I was going to ask a couple of questions. Robin, one, I'm going to go back to yours first in terms of when you presented your ideas a couple of times, and people were polite and they nodded, etc. But then they went back to where they were. How did you persevere in terms of? I mean, I find that sometimes not just that happened to me a fair bit as well. And the only way I I was a bit of a bully in some ways when I look back, because nothing else worked. So I would, throw out numbers. I love numbers, and say, hey, here's the implications. Here's the outstanding teams. You guys don't want this right across. If you don't, I just want to take note of it that I've raised it, right? And then, of course, if I'm taking note of it, if I've raised it, then everyone pays attention. I mean, that was a tactic I remember I used a couple of times, but I never felt good about doing it that way. And then I got a bit wiser and started to get the right sponsors who would allow me the time. How did you go about it in those instances? And then I want to go back to Becky, and I want to ask Becky about, you said something about you feeling, I'm not sure if that was the right word, lucky or grateful that you guys had that opportunity set aside to, specifically given that time to think that through. So Robin, if we make it you start first and Becky, then we can go back to you.
Yeah, I think it really depends upon which cultural environment you're in. When I was at AT&T, I would actually put the idea out there. I usually would get these funny stares or looks as if I was on a different planet, or I had that third eye or something else going on, or I wouldn't get invited back to the next roundtable because they couldn't understand why I was there to begin with, or something like that. But then I would go and do, since I had already shared it out in the room, I then covertly went back and actually put it in practice so that I could demonstrate it somewhere. And once I demonstrated it, it actually showed, hey, this is what you can do with that idea and how we're going to go about doing it. It was quite interesting. Then I would get noticed. We did something at AT&T where they wanted me to build this huge system, claims actually, $20 million in software. And I said, why don't we just change the process? Let's not file claims anymore. And of course, everybody got really quiet. Nobody else said nothing. We left. So then I went and put a process together in one space where we didn't do claims anymore, and saved them the $20 million on the software, and actually saved the company in moving money back and forth between the Bell operating companies. The funny thing about that is I didn't realize there were 6,000 claims clerks that lost their jobs. And it's very possible that if people around the table knew that, and my idea wouldn't take hold because they were worried about the cultural hit to the union. And so some of those things, being younger and not being aware of some of those other ramifications, I was looking at it from a different lens. When I went back and actually applied it in a small space, I could bring them the artifacts to show, okay, this is how it would work. So I didn't give up. I just tried a different approach.
So how do you guys do it? I mean, when I look at you two, and I've conversed with Robin a fair bit, and I've now spent a bit of time with you, I see you have, you use those subtle characteristics within you, the feminine qualities that's so highly talked about now, and everyone thinks men should have these qualities in them as well, because women make amazing leaders. Now, how did you guys manage to use that and still have a smile and etc., rather than being, we've all been there with those bull terrier types, okay, that just bully through everybody, right? How did you find out that those qualities are actually powerful, and how did they serve you?
Well, I've just always found that, I've just never believed that I was the smartest person in the room. And I've always felt like you don't have to be that smart if you surround yourself with a lot of smart people. Sure. And, go meet somebody like Robin, who's absolutely brilliant, and ask Robin, how do you do this? Because so many of these issues in corporate America are universal. If you're struggling with something in your company, go talk to one of your peers. Know at least people who do what you do. I can't tell you how many times that has saved me. The other thing is that people in these senior roles don't know it all. Things are changing too fast, and you better be talking to people on the front line. Your employees on the front line have a whole lot more insight into what you need to be doing than you do. But if you're not listening to them, if you're discounting what they have to say, then you're never going to be able to really know where it is you need to be taking your company. And keep yourself out there. I mean, read, talk to other people, see what's coming, and then come back and share those ideas with people on the front line that have to make this happen. And share the ideas with your peers. You should know 5 people in other companies that do exactly what you do. And not only learn from them about how they do things, but also learn from them what not to do.
Exactly. Find examples where they've actually gone down that same path or used a different approach. I like hiring people that are smarter than me, or being around people that are smarter than me, because it stretches us. I do agree that there are a lot of leaders that feel like they should be the one who understands and knows all the answers. And I think the thing that women bring to the table is we're great listeners. And being a great listener is hearing those little silent voices out in the field that, have those great ideas. Because I guarantee you, it wasn't me sitting in the room by myself saying, why are we doing claims? Well, I only asked why because I was coming from a technology area, and I'm like, why would we ever process a claim? And so you have other people in the room telling you, well, we're doing it for this reason. And then when you start listening, you figure out really quickly, well, it's really not needed. We've just been doing it for a long time, and nobody knows how to get out of it.
The other thing I think is really important is to listen to the vendors, the people that sell to your company, because, for instance, with AT&T, they were in every corporation in America. And so when I would meet with my account rep, I'd say, who do you think has the best IT group in the country? And tell me why you feel that way. And tell me what you think about my group. And if you develop the right kind of relationship, you'll get a lot of candor back about things that need to be fixed and things you can do better. And so it's all about really being willing to be open and listen and willing to accept the fact that you're not the smartest person in the room. If you ever think that, then you're really in trouble.
Wow, that's a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. And I think it's a piece of advice that can go beyond the corporate world in itself.
Because what's interesting is I interviewed those 28 women for my book, but I also interviewed a lot of men. And I asked them, I said, if you could change one thing about women in the corporate world, what would it be? And the number one thing that came back from men was, quit taking it so personal. I don't even want to give a woman feedback on anything because they get too upset about it. And of course, I wanted to say to them, well, you might want to think about how you wrap that feedback. We're all more accepting to it when it's wrapped in the right wrapper. But I have, when I've spoken to women, said, listen to the feedback, because even if it's not the truth, there's truth in it. And the only way you're going to get better is if you take that into consideration and ask for feedback. Anytime you give a talk somewhere, ask people, how did I do?
Could I do better? Is there something else I could have done?
And get better the next time. But it's your responsibility to ask for that feedback and be open to it, because if you get defensive when people give you feedback, they're only going to do it one time.
That goes all back to having ownership and understanding that you own how you respond or react to something, how you handle and manage yourself, how do you actually take yourself out of a toxic environment if the boss is doing a certain thing. And even though you like what you're doing, maybe just moving yourself and like you said, going somewhere and breathing differently for a few minutes, and then coming back and maybe reframing, this person's mad for a reason. Maybe you don't know all of those reasons, but there's a reason they're mad.
What you just said is very powerful, because sometimes people will come to me and say, I'm in a very toxic work environment. And I'll say, well, you have three choices. There's three things you can do. First of all, you can try to change it, right, and make it better. The second thing is you can accept it for the way it is. And the third thing you can do is you can leave.
Exactly.
They don't like to hear that third choice, but sometimes it's time to leave. You just have to make that decision that you're not going to, and particularly when people have financial investment at stake, it's tough to do that. But you got to look inside, and if you're not happy there, sometimes that's the choice you got to make.
Role models, I know you talked a little bit about it, and what the importance of having someone to look up to that can guide you or to steer you in the right direction. Any examples where you were headed off one particular direction that you had this aha moment after speaking to or looking at someone you admire?
Well, my aha moment was I went out, Becky had me come and talk to her leadership team one day, because she thought, okay, Robin, come and share what you're doing within AT&T, because some of what you're doing there, we had this whole concept of one, as opposed to multiple systems or multiple capabilities, this concept of one, bringing the financial systems together, bringing the billing systems together. So I came in and talked with her team, and then she said something to me at the very end of the session. She said, you need to get out in front of other people. And I told her, I said, well, I was too busy and all this. She says, it's not for you. It's for all the other young women who need to have role models in this space. It was kind of like, get over yourself, Robin. It's get out there and do it, because other young women need to see that people are in jobs that we're doing, and you need to get out there because you owe it back to the community that's put you here.
it's very hard to be something you've never seen. And Robin and I really didn't have benefit of watching many other women who were in some of these leadership roles. And so I feel like it's important that when we do have women that get to that level, that they're willing to get out there and speak and be role models for the next generation and share with them, some of the lessons that we've learned along the way.
But I've watched a lot of successful men, and you walk away with saying to yourself, okay, that's a quality that I would like, and I think I'll use that one. Or, hey, I will never do that, and I'll make sure I'll never do that. And put that one away to say, okay, that was a lessons learned. They were doing such and such, and the way they were talking to that group actually put everybody on edge and put them in a situation where they couldn't be successful. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, if I ever have an opportunity to lead a team or move a team in a direction, I need to do it in a way that's collaborative, that they're not competing with each other or not competing with me to have the smart answer.
Robin is so humble. I went to her because a friend of mine had a publication and wanted to put Robin on the front page, and Robin's like, "Oh no, I'm not comfortable doing that." And that's when I said, "Robin, you've got to do this. You need to be out there so that other people can see that women can be successful in these roles. We need to promote you and celebrate you."
A special thank you to Populous, our sponsors, the people who specialise in high performance. If you like what you hear, share it, take some notes, and give me some comments as well. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and I'll shoot you a couple more videos that other people haven't seen. All the best. Let's get stuck into this.
Do you know, can I just share something with you ladies? I mean, I'm a very lucky guy in the sense that I had I've still got, thank God, my mum's quite a powerful woman, yet she's highly feminine in her approach and ways. And she achieves things that most guys would only dream of achieving. And so subtle, and people follow her, it doesn't matter what. Sometimes I think, well, why the heck are those people doing that for you? Because I know her a bit better. But then I realise just how much time she puts into people. But and then I've got 3 sisters, and first couple of bosses in corporate world were women, and I really enjoyed working, in that space. And I remember my first team, out of 19 people in the team, 18 were women, and so I very quickly learned to get rid of the tissues and face my desk the other way, so that I wouldn't have to deal with all the other stuff. But I'm someone who never felt any difference. I actually quite enjoyed that. So every time I went into the corporate world, I would see it dominated by guys, the board level. I'd be like, oh, this is so boring. This is so, this is the same ideas. This, the same yes, no, challenge in what I could call common sense. There was a lot less common sense. However, I never felt, if a lady proposed an idea, it was any different to a guy. If in any way, it was actually a lot better because it was fresh and it was a different way of looking.
And that's not the norm.
No,
and so
I'm
you're not the
hearing
norm.
that.
And it could be just the space that you've grown up. But I have seen a lot of men who have reached back to me saying, Robin, now that I have a daughter, not just because he had a wife, but now that I have a daughter and I see what my daughter is going through, and I see what my daughter's trying to do in school or what I'm trying to encourage her in, I now understand more about the challenges that women face in all aspects. And sometimes when you see young girls in those middle years, middle school, they're scared that they're not perfect. They're scared that they're not the prettiest. They tend to shut down on trying to get into some of these other areas because they get laughed at or they're thought of in a different way. But there's a lot of different facets out now trying to help break open that type of thinking. So it could be that it's old culture America. It could be that there's stodgy leaders in certain jobs that are stuck in that space. There's a lot of women who are exiting the corporate world to start their own thing because they don't want to deal with that, that other environment that they've been dealing with over the years. And so corporate America is going to lose out by not having women at the table. And what I find in a lot of women, we're very collaborative. We support each other. We promote each other. And I think guys do that a little bit, but they're more of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they kind of herd behind one person that's kind of got the lead. And they'll be yes men, more competitive.
Collaborative. One of the things I think you have to be very careful of, and I really don't like books that put all women in one category and all men in another category, because there's a lot of brain science out there now, and one of the things they say is that one in 5 men thinks more like a woman, and 1 in 7 men thinks more like 7 women thinks more like a man. So you have to be very careful about that. There are some similarities, though, and one of them is that women use a lot more words to communicate than men do. On average, women use 21,000 words a day, and men use around 7.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the coaching that I give to women and to men, I tell women, I say, get to the point when you communicate with a man, because they have a very short attention span, and if you want them to hear something, you better come out the chute and tell them. Otherwise, they're going to very quickly, their mind's going to be off to something else.
Yes, exactly.
And I tell men, you know, you need to be very cautious about listening, even if a woman's using a lot of words, because there's a whole lot of nuggets in there that she'll share. Women see a lot of things when they walk into a room that a man doesn't see. And you know this, you go to a cocktail party with your spouse or significant other, and I know when my husband and I walk out, I can tell him who's getting a divorce. I can remember what people had on. I know who's mad at each other. And he's going, what are you talking about?
We can read the room a lot faster.
And a man never sees these things. And so I tell people that these same things are very important when you go into negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a company, and it's mostly men, and we go on and call on somebody, and sometimes the decision maker is a woman. And when you're communicating with a woman, she'll sit there and shake her head yes. And we walk out and they're like, yes, we're getting the business. I'm like, no, that doesn't mean that she's getting ready to give you any business. That means that she's heard you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in talking to a man and he's shaking his head yes, that means that's pretty good. He's probably going to do some business with you. So I've had to coach them that when you call on a woman, it's very different. But you know, companies are also very interested in this whole gender dynamic, because so many times the decision maker on their product today is a woman. Women make 80% of the buying decisions in this country. And so if you're going to be selling more of your product, you better figure out how to communicate and how to sell to women.
That's true. That is so true. I must be one of those. What was the ratio for men that think more like women?
1 in 5.
Yeah.
I'm one of those 1 in 5, but hey, I'm a man.
And you know, women know this. When we are talking to a man, we know if it's a guy who gets it.
We can pick it up really quick.
And I always tell men, if you don't know what gets it means, that means you don't get it. You better go find out what gets it.
You better go get it. You better find out how to get it.
So,
but what happens is we'll spend a little time with that person, but then we'll move on to somebody else in the room, because we want to make sure that where our communication is not being wasted on somebody.
Well done.
The many things that you can outsource or prioritize or get somebody else to do, taking care of yourself is something that you can't do. The other thing that I give a lot of advice to women on is you got to be better at delegating. I mean, women are not good at taking work and giving it to other people, but they can't really grow their leadership skills and become who they need to be in their jobs if you're not cutting loose and giving the work to them and trusting them to get it done. Let them learn. If they're going to fail, yes, fine, learn from that. That's how, you know, I ended up ultimately being successful, because people allowed me to fail. And so you got to cut it loose. But when it comes to taking care of your health is your wealth. I don't know who said that, but it's true. And we take it for granted until we don't have it. And you can't write a check and get anybody else to do that. That's your job.
That's true.
Wonderful.
Health is my number 1.
Yes.
Family's number 2. Get to know my granddaughter even better. So really want to get more into that space. But getting more corporate boards than I am now, because I don't want to become buried inside of one corporation. I actually want to be able to help as many as I can, and mentoring people, continuing mentoring people.
You got to love their accents, don't you? The southern women, they get me every time. I've learned so much from both Robin and Becky, and I can't wait to have the guys back on the show. We'll be doing an extended series with Robin as well. So do us a favor, if you have any special guests that you'd like Robin and I to bring to you together, send me a note on that, And again, share the love with as many people as you can. Really appreciate it. There are 3 types of people, right? The givers, the tic-tac, and of course, the takers. Be the giver. Share the love. All the best. Can't wait for you guys to see the rest of the 13 in these series on the Happiness platform. Go and live an awesome life. Talk to you soon.